evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for joining us, in the especially the ones who came in the wind. Thank you for coming all the way, making it out here. So last week we got a real taste of Talmud study, and that was quite interesting. Today we're going to get a real taste of the study of Kabbalah. Okay, so this is the Fundamentals of Judaism series, so we have to make sure to get an in-depth taste of Talmud and also the Kabbalah. So this week is going to be the Kabbalah, and along the way we're going to discuss some very interesting topics about struggles, happiness, unhappiness, and how to achieve happiness. So, without further ado, I'd like to begin with thinking about the question and asking the question, why are people unhappy? Why are people unhappy, and what, in your opinion, could make them happier? So if you'd like, grab a pen. You can jot down something on your paper. We're trying to figure out, why are people unhappy? Of course, there's no, of course, it's not the same for everyone. But if you could think of something fundamental, perhaps, and then something fundamental that could help people lead happier lives, what do you think that would be?
I believe that often the idea of happiness is not connected to freedom in any kind. Yeah, and it can make some people feel unhappy.
Again, what could make people unhappy?
If their happiness, what they are looking for, is not actually containing freedom, some sort of freedom. For example,
you're saying happiness comes from freedom.
Yes, I believe it's a big factor. Yes.
Okay. Anyone want to share?
There's those the basic needs, like having where to live, being warm, having what to eat. I think also it's basics to.
Basic needs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Proximity to God.
Okay.
That's a relationship with God. It's probably a big factor, in my opinion.
So people who are unhappy, that's the reason they're unhappy, is because they don't have a relationship with God. Okay.
I would say some meaning.
Okay. People are unhappy because they're missing meaning in their lives. Okay.
Sometimes. Yeah, I agree.
Any other ideas? Okay.
Also a state of mind of some people that don't see the good things and see the bad things.
Right. What they're focusing on.
Yeah.
Focusing on the.
Maybe also people who give are happier.
Okay.
What did you say? People who give.
Can you trouble you for one piece of paper?
You know.
Yeah.
Filling the. Right?
Okay, let's keep this question in mind, and let's keep some of your answers in mind while we continue this conversation and go through some of the ideas that we have prepared. So I'd like to begin with the first two pieces of text, and this time it comes from the very beginning of the Torah, from the very beginning of the Bible. This is the book of Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 4. So we'll read a short story that happened in the beginning of this book, and then we will see in the second text a short commentary. Rashi is the name of the commentary. You mentioned him last time. So we'll see the text and the commentary of Rashi. So I'll just read through this fairly quickly. Now the man knew his wife Eve, right? Adam, referring to Adam. And she conceived and bore Cain. And she said, I've acquired a man with the Lord. And she continued to bear his brother Abel. And Abel was shepherd of flocks, and Cain was a tiller of the soil. Now it came to pass at the end of days that Cain brought of the fruit of the soil an offering to the Lord. And Abel, he too, brought of the firstborn of his flocks and of their fattest. And the Lord turned to Abel and to his offering. But to Cain and to his offering he did not turn. And it annoyed Cain exceedingly, and his countenance fell. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you annoyed? And why has your countenance fallen? Is it not so that if you improve, it will be forgiven you? If you do not improve, however, at the entrance sin is lying, and to you it is longing, but you can rule over it. And Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. Okay, the language is a little bit. I don't know if this is the translation that we usually use, but it's a bit of an abstract translation. But I'll tell you the story. The story is that there was Cain and Hevel, Cain and Abel, in English, and they were the children of Adam and Eve, and one was a shepherd, and one was a farmer. Okay, so it was time for them to bring. They felt that they wanted to give thanks to God. They wanted to bring a gift to God, and so each one of them brought a sacrifice. So Abel, Hevel, he brought the most beautiful. He brought the fattiest animal, the firstborn. He brought the best of his flock. But Cain, he brought the cheapest and the poorest looking fruits from his fields. So what happened? So each one tried to bring a sacrifice. Hevel, who brought the beautiful sacrifice, his was consumed by a fire from heaven, consumed his sacrifice. That represented that it was accepted by God. But Cain's was not accepted. So then God spoke to Cain and he said, why are you upset? And what God said was, if you improve, then you'll be forgiven. But if not, then sin is always lying at the entrance, so to speak. Sin is always going to be very close to you, very easy to sin. But you can rule over it, right? So what God is telling Cain is that, first of all, you have the opportunity to improve. If you don't improve, it'll be very easy for you to sin. But in the end, even with this negativity, even with this sin, you could still overcome it. You have the ability to overcome it. Okay, so this is the story that we have in the Torah. This is the story from the book of Bereshis. Let us look at the commentary, Rashi. We have 2 lines. Rashi quotes the text of the verse and then gives the explanation. So the underlined text is the text from the Torah, from the verse, and then what comes after is Rashi's commentary. Okay, quote, and to you is its longing, the longing of sin, i.e. the evil inclination which constantly longs and lusts to cause you to stumble. All right, so so Rashi says, what does it mean that to you is its longing? What does it mean that you have this longing to sin? So Rashi says this is referring to the evil inclination. Everyone has an evil inclination, and this inclination desires negativity or sin, and causes people to stumble and make mistakes. Okay, so Rashi is in this line. Rashi is teaching us about the evil inclination. Okay, everyone has an evil inclination. Next line, but you can rule over it. That's what the verse said. Rashi explains, if you wish, you will overpower it. So everyone has the ability. Rashi is emphasizing this point that everyone has the ability to overpower this evil inclination. So Rashi is teaching us that we have an evil inclination, but at the same time also teaching us that we have the power to overcome it. Okay. Okay, so Cain was stingy. He valued his money more than he valued a relationship with God. And so that's why he brought a very cheap offering. And that's why it was not accepted. Mm-hmm. So God decided to teach Cain a lesson. What was the lesson? He taught him that a relationship with God requires effort. You have to work hard. You have to invest in it. You have to bring the best. You have to think about the relationship. You know, it's not to be taken for granted. So the good thing for Cain to do would be to try to change his character and to work on his relationship with God. But instead, he did what unfortunately sometimes people do. And what he did was he murdered his brother. Right? So sometimes you're jealous of someone. So instead of lifting yourself up and improving yourself, you push down the other, right? So that's two ways. Let's say there's some type of competition between two people, so and then you lose. So either you could work harder the next time and try to prove yourself, or you could do something to undermine the other. You could say, oh, they cheated, or you could say not nice things, or you could be rude, or you could hurt them emotionally or physically, whatever it might be. So unfortunately, Cain, he took the second path, and instead of improving himself, he was jealous with his brother, so he killed his brother. This was the first murder in the Torah. It's very, very unfortunate situation. So the question is, why do we feel this way? Why are we happy when we find out that famous people have the same problems that we have? You know, sometimes it feels good. It looks like they're having such a good life, but in fact, you find out that they also have problems. So it makes you feel good. Why does that make us feel good? Or in the case that we're talking about here, why is it that when you're competing with someone, why is it that you feel good if they fail? Perhaps, hopefully we don't feel this way, but it's possible that we could feel this way. Be happy when your opponent fails, or someone who you don't like, something bad happens to them, or even worse, you do something to harm them emotionally or physically, whatever it might be. Why do we feel this way? Why do we have this jealousy? So Rashi answers this question. Rashi says it's because of our evil inclination. So our evil inclination, it's what does it desire? Instant gratification, anything that feels good right now. So if it will make me feel good for a moment, that someone else also has problems and I'm not the only one, that's what the evil inclination wants. That's what's going to make the evil inclination feel good. Nevertheless, God tells Cain, and Rashi emphasizes this point, that we could overcome this feeling or this character trait. We're not doomed by, and it doesn't necessarily have to control who we are, how we feel, or what we do. So this idea that humans are doomed to selfishness is obviously not the Jewish view. So in the Jewish view, it's always possible to improve your character and to overcome such feelings and certainly such actions that someone might be tempted to take. The question is how. How could we overcome this type of feeling and this type of jealousy? So to answer this question, we're going to have to look into the Kabbalah. And the reason why we have to look into the Kabbalah is because the Kabbalah is the one place that really discusses and reveals who we are as people. So it talks about our internal makeup. It talks about who we are at the core. It talks about our soul. Talks about how we function. So this we're not going to find so much in the Talmud. You can see a little bit here and there, little tidbits and little points, but the real place for this to talk about who we are at the core, this is the Kabbalah. Now, many people talk about the Kabbalah, many people quote the Kabbalah, but what is the Kabbalah actually? What is the Kabbalah, and what's the point of it, and what does it do? Anybody?
Well, I've always perceived the Kabbalah as sort of like what's going on behind the scenes.
Okay.
So, it's sort of the underlying program of everything while the narrative plays out. Not sure how accurate that is, but sort of my perception.
Anyone else want to share anything that they know about what is the Kabbalah, what it's about, what does it do?
I know very little about. I read, and my impression was more like how we set our intentions and manifest and make good realizations, and all this mysticism, which is not so actually mystic, and I felt like it's a good description of that, like very, very core feelings of, yeah.
Okay. So instead of me telling you what the Kabbalah is all about, how about the Kabbalah tells us what the Kabbalah is all about? So let's look at the most famous and most important book of the Kabbalah, which is called the Zohar. And let's see how this book describes itself. Because this book gives a description to what the Kabbalah is all about. So this is the text where you can see where it says Zohar, and it's in the third section of the Zohar. The Zohar is the most important book of Kabbalah. Certainly the most famous, and basically all Kabbalistic writings are going to be based on the Zohar. So this is a good place to, if the Zohar is going to give a description as to what its function is and what the Kabbalah is all about, then this is a really good place to look to find out what the Kabbalah is. So Rabbi Shimon said, and Rabbi Shimon is the author of the Kabbalah, very famous Kabbalist, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You might remember him from the story of Lag BaOmer. Rabbi Shimon is one of the main characters, and he is the author of the Zohar. So Rabbi Shimon said, "Woe to the man who says that the Torah merely tells tales and ordinary matters. If this were so, we could compose even nowadays a Torah dealing with ordinary matters, and an even better one at that. In reality, however, all the words of the Torah represent lofty themes and sublime mysteries. The Torah is clothed in garments that relate to this world, because otherwise the world would not be able to contain and absorb it. The stories of the Torah are only the garments of the Torah. The Torah also has a body, namely the precepts of the Torah, which are called Gufei Torah, the bodies, principles of the Torah. And that body is vested in garments, namely the worldly tales and language of the Torah. The fools of this world look at the garment, the narrations of the Torah, and they do not know anything more. They do not consider what is beyond that garment. Those who realize more do not look at the garment, but at the body beneath it. But the wise, the servants of the Supreme King, look for the soul, the very essence of everything. So just to paraphrase what the Kabbalah is saying, what the Zohar is saying, is that the Torah, if you just look at the Torah, you see stories, you see laws, you see very down-to-earth ideas. And what Rabbi Shimon is saying is that if that's all you see, then you're missing perhaps the main part. Because just like you see a person, if you only look at their clothing, at their garments, you're missing their character, you're missing who they are. Or on a deeper level, there's their soul. If you're not looking at their character and their soul, you're only seeing something very external. The same thing is with the Torah. The Torah, the laws, the principles, the stories, this is all the garments. But in fact, and of course it's all super important. But if you don't see anything deeper than that, then you're missing the soul of the Torah. So what is the Kabbalah? The Kabbalah is the soul of the Torah. So what does this mean practically? It means that if you see a simple story in the Torah, there are more layers to that story. So on a simple level, we have the story, but on a deeper level, there's going to be the soul of the text, the soul of the story, and it might be a hidden meaning or lessons or ideas that are kind of hidden within the external part of the story. So the Torah is saying the story on a very simple level, so that it could be understood. It could be understood, and it could be learned on a practical level. But the Kabbalah is about revealing the soul of the Torah. What's behind it also? What are the deeper layers of the Torah? Okay, so the Torah is like the body, and the Kabbalah is like the soul. Now both are important, right? So imagine you only see a body, but you don't see the soul. So a body can't be alive without a soul. So the soul is really the core. The soul is really the underlying truth, right? So on the one hand, you can't have a body without a soul, because you're missing the main part. You're missing the main character. You're missing the real person, right? But at the same time, you also can't have a soul without a body. You can't have a soul without a body. As important as the soul is what gives life. The soul is the true character of the person. The soul is really everything. But as important as the soul is nothing without the body. The soul is nothing without the body, because what happens when there's no more body? What happens when the body passes away? The soul goes to heaven. The soul can't be here. The soul can't experience life as we know it. So each one is an integral part. The body is important and the soul is important. And the same thing is with the Torah. With the Torah, that you have the principles, you have the laws, you have the stories. These are very important. But without the Kabbalah, you're missing the soul of the Torah. But at the same time, the soul is not enough on its own. You also need to have the principles and the laws of the Torah. And this explains something very interesting. Normally, philosophers are not very busy with mundane issues and with details of the law, right? Usually, philosophers they have their mind in philosophy, and then you have the lawyers who are engrossed in the detail of the law. They don't go together. Philosophy and law don't go together, right? For the most part,
Unless there's a philosophy of law.
perhaps. But when it comes to the Torah, the opposite is true. The greatest Kabbalists in Jewish history were the greatest experts in Jewish law. Okay, so you have people like Maimonides. They were on the one hand, he was a Kabbalist, but he also wrote the first version of the Code of Jewish Law. So as lofty as their thinking was in terms of the Kabbalah and the soul of Torah and the philosophy, but they were at the same time very detail oriented, and they were very focused on the detail of Jewish law. So this is just to show how the greatest Kabbalists were also super detail oriented and were very into the details of Jewish law. Now, why is this? How could it be that the philosophers and the people who are thinking about the soul all the time, how could they focus so much on the body? How could they focus so much on these mundane and simple details at the same time? And the reason why in Judaism it works together, the philosophy and the law, is because it's about God. Now, any philosopher understands that compare the number 1 to 1,000, it's extremely distant. Compare the number 500 to 1,000, you're much closer, right? However, if you're going to compare a number to an infinite amount, right? So let's say you're trying to say what's closer to infinity. Is number 1 closer to infinity? I'm sorry, is the number 500 closer to infinity, or is it not? It's not any closer. They're equally distant from infinity because it's infinite, it's unlimited, it's not any closer. And that's what philosophers understand about God. They understand that we are finite and God is infinite. So to you think that philosophy is like the number 500. It's it's really high, it's really lofty, it's very spiritual. So you think it's very advanced and very high up there. And the details of the law, they're just small things. It's just mundane law. That's like a number 1. So if you're not thinking about God, then you're right. To find number 500 is closer to 1,000 than 1 is. But if it's in relation to God, if the philosophy is connected to God because it's the Torah, and if the law is connected to God because it's the law of God, then they're equally close or equally distant to God. So that's how the Kabbalists are also the greatest experts on Jewish law. So why am I sharing this with you? Because today in the world you have all types of different Kabbalah programs and all kinds of different things. So I'm sharing with you 2 things as to what the Kabbalah is. Number 1, the Kabbalah is the soul of the Torah. It's a deeper layer of the Torah, which means every time you look into the Torah and you see something, so you should always know that this is not all there is. There's always a deeper message. There's always a deeper meaning. There's always something hidden within the text, and it's multi-layered. There are many layers. So that's the power of the Kabbalah. It's the soul. It really is the core of what the Torah is. But at the same time, it's important to know that the soul and the body are very much connected. So if you're going to study Kabbalah in such a way that it's disconnected from the body of the Torah, if you're going to study the Kabbalah in such a way that it's disconnected from the laws of the Torah, then that's not what Kabbalah is. That's not what Kabbalah is. Okay. So now you have a glimpse into the background of what Kabbalah is all about and how it works, how it should be studied. And now you know the key. This is the key to the key to know if Kabbalah is being studied correctly is if it's together with the body. Just like you can't have a soul disconnected from the body, the Kabbalah cannot be disconnected from the laws, the principles, and the stories of the Torah. Okay.
You should tell it to the Kabbalah Center here in Iceland.
The Kabbalah Center.
Yeah, it's not very active, but it does exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it?
But-
What is it?
I don't know, but I think their approach is actually to separate Kabbalah from the Torah, like the law. So I don't think they're actually doing it
Okay.
correctly.
So now you got the backstory. Okay.
Mm.
So now let's put the theory to the test. Okay. So we talked how the Kabbalah is the soul of the Torah. So let's find out. Let's take the example that we started with. Let's take the story that we started with, and let's see what does the Kabbalah contribute to the body of the Torah. What is the soul of the Torah add to the simple layer, to the first layer, to the simple meaning of the Torah? So what we were talking about, just to remind ourselves, is the evil inclination. We talked about how Cain, instead of improving himself, he murdered his brother because he was jealous of him. Why did he do that? Rashi told us why did he do that? Because he has an evil inclination. Rashi says he has an evil inclination. Everyone has an evil inclination, but we could overcome it. And we're trying to figure out how could we overcome it. So let's try to see what could the Kabbalah tell us about this? What could the soul of Torah teach us about this to help us figure out and understand the evil inclination, how we could overcome it, and so on and so forth. So we're going to start with verses. We're going to start with the external layers, and then we're going to go deeper and deeper until we get to the Kabbalah, till we get to the soul of the Torah. And hopefully in this way you'll be able to experience real Kabbalah study and appreciate what the Kabbalah contributes and what the Kabbalah adds to the Torah. Okay, so let's look at a text now. The text from Deuteronomy, the book of Devarim, and it's chapter 6, verse number 6. It's a very short verse. It comes from the prayer of Shema. It says, and I see a typo in the beginning. It's missing the word you. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. Okay. Now, unfortunately, we only have the English text over here. Does anybody know the Hebrew text for this offhand? Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha. Right? You recognize the text? In English, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart. Now, what is the word for your heart in Hebrew? Levavecha. Is that how you say heart in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Is that how you say levavecha?
Yeah.
So actually, it's a very unusual way to say it, because really, how do you say heart is lev?
Yeah.
Lev is heart, and if you say your heart, you say levcha or libcha, right? Why does it say livavecha with two v's? It's like two v's. Livavecha. It's saying it like double. It really is just. It should say. It should say like Johanna said, like livcha or lev shelcha. But livavecha is not the correct way to say it. This is not my question. This is the question of the Talmud. The Talmud says, why does it say livavecha? It's the wrong way to say it. It's the wrong language to use. So the Talmud in Tractate Brachot, page 54, gives the answer, and you could see it in the text in front of you. With all your heart means with both inclinations, the good inclination and evil inclination. So the Talmud is teaching us something that we didn't know before.
Mhm.
Teaching us that there's also a good inclination. Okay, so from the beginning of the class, we only knew about the evil inclination. Now you could relax a little bit. We also have a good inclination. Okay. And now let's look a little bit more detail little bit more detail about the inclinations. We could see in the next piece of the Talmud, also from Brachot, 6 pages later, 7 pages later, page 61, it said Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda, which means Rabbi Nachman, the son of Chisda, expounded. What is meant by the verse, then the Lord God formed, Vayetzer is the Hebrew word, the human. Why is the word Vayetzer written with 2 yuds? Okay, so in Hebrew it's with Vav, Yud, Tzadik, Resh. Instead of 1, which is grammatically correct. Okay, so I apologize, I don't have the Hebrew in front of us, but you'll have to take it from the English. Instead of the Torah writing it with 1 yud, which is the correct way, it writes it with 2 yuds. Okay, so the answer is the Talmud. The 2 yuds are to indicate that God created 2 yetzers, inclinations, one good and the other evil. Okay, so here you see a little bit more exactly the yetzer hara and yetzer tov, the evil inclination and the good inclination. So we're seeing a little bit more of the same thing. So what do we know now? We know that we have two voices inside of us. We have one voice pushing us to the positive side, one voice pushing us to be selfless and to selfless behavior, and the other voice is pushing us to negativity or more selfish behavior, more selfish desires. So we are conflicted inside. There's a struggle inside of us. You have one voice pulling you in one direction, you have the other voice pulling you in the other direction, and we have this in all different parts of our life, in relationships, in all kinds of things. We sometimes promise ourselves that next time we'll hold our tongue, but we don't. The wrong thing comes out of our mouth, and we fall back to old habits. So on the one hand, we say to ourselves, "No, we're going to improve. We're going to fix a relationship. We're going to improve our relationship." But then, what happens? We fall back to old habits. How does this happen? What's happening? Why the struggle? Why these 2 sides? And the answer is because we have 2 sides to us. We have the good inclination, the evil inclination, the selfish side, and the selfless side, right? So the selfless side is saying, put yourself on the side for someone else. Be kind for someone else, even if it's going to cost you something, even if it's going to cost you time, money, whatever it might be. So that's why we have the struggle. On the one hand, we have this ideal way of thinking that we want to be good, we want to be selfless, we want to be kind, we want to be helpful, but then very often we fall back to old habits. Should I study or should I go to the party? Mm-hmm. Whichever one you choose, part of you is going to feel like it's doing the wrong thing or missing out. I go to the party, you feel you should have studied, or you feel guilty.
It's instant gratification versus delayed gratification.
But this is the struggle. Whatever you do, a part of you is not going to be completely happy. So this we learned from the Torah. We learned from the Torah about these 2 voices. The thing is that the Torah that we already know this. We already know this from other places. I mean, there are many cartoons which show a little angel on one shoulder, a little devil on the other shoulder. So this is not. This is really not. This is not really something new that we're finding out about. This is something that everyone knows. But there's actually a fundamental difference to these cartoons that you see and the Jewish view, because you look at the cartoon, you're going to see a devil. Is that how Judaism sees it? No, of course not, because we learned in the beginning that you could improve yourself and you could overcome it. You could improve yourself. That means that you're not doomed by it. and you're not, stuck by, by that. When we say that you could improve and overcome it, that is indicating that the evil inclination could also be part of serving God. It could also be part of being good. Okay, so it's fun. So what we're saying from the Jewish view is fundamentally different to what you might have known up until this point. Because up until this point, we know that there's a little angel and there's a little devil, and the angel is an angel and the devil is the devil. But this is obviously not the Jewish view, because the Jewish view is saying that you could improve yourself, and you're not stuck with this. You're not stuck in this situation. You always have the ability to overcome it. How could this be?
Just that when this is said, it's like you can improve and use only your Yetzer Tov, or that the Yetzer Hara can be used for good.
So if we, the text that we saw, it said, just to look at it again, it said, it says, is it not so that if you improve, right, it's saying that you could improve.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the word improve more than once. Improving implies that you're not just, well, we'll see it more clearly soon. Maybe you can say that improve means that you're only listening to get to your Yetzer Tov, but the Yetzer Hara is still doing its thing, and you're still stuck with it, so to speak. But as we'll go on, we're gonna find out that it's actually quite different to that, and you could actually the Yetzer Hara, or the evil inclination, could be part of the positive picture. Let's find out how that works.
Okay.
So again, from the Torah, from the body of the Torah, we don't see how this is possible. How could you say that the evil inclination is part of the solution, so to speak, part of the positive side of things? So again, now so what did we see? We saw the verses, we saw the Talmud, we saw a second piece of the Talmud, we saw a commentary. Now we're going to look into the Kabbalah to see what is it that the Kabbalah could add to everything that we learned so far. So let's look at the Kabbalah, and this is going to be again from the Zohar. It's going to be from the second book of the Zohar. You could see it at the bottom of the first page of your text. Should it be asked, how can a person love God with the evil inclination? Oh, here's the answer to your question. I'm sorry. I should have said this before. Even before we see the Kabbalah. What does the Shema say? It says, "V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha." You shall love the Lord with all your heart. And we said levavecha it says it like two. So it says with two inclinations. So what does that mean? That you should love God with both inclinations. So what is that saying very clearly? It's saying that you could love God with your evil inclination. All right, so that's the answer to your question. We don't know how that's possible, but we know that that's the fact. We know that it's true. So now we need to look into the Kabbalah to understand, how could it be? How is it possible that the evil inclination could be part of the serving God and loving God, and part of the positive side of things? Okay. And this is exactly what the Kabbalah is coming to explain in this book of the Zohar. Should it be asked, how can a person love God with the evil inclination? Is it not the evil inclination the seducer? But indeed, the evil inclination also does the will of God. It is as if a king had an only son whom he dearly loved, and because of that, he warned him not to be enticed by immoral women. saying that anyone corrupt might not enter his palace. The son promised his father to do his will and love. Outside the palace, however, there lived a beautiful harlot. After a while, the king thought, I will see to what degree my son is devoted to me. So he sent for the woman and commanded her, saying, entice my son, for I wish to test his obedience to my will. So she used every trick in her book to lure him into her embraces. But the son, being virtuous, obeyed the commandment of his father. He refused her allurements and resisted her. Then did the father rejoice exceedingly, and bringing him into the innermost chamber of the palace, he bestowed upon him gifts from his best treasures and showed him every honor. And who was the catalyst for all this joy? The harlot. Is she to be praised or blamed for it? To be praised, surely, on all accounts. For on the one hand, she fulfilled the king's command and carried out his plans for him. And on the other hand, she caused the son to receive all the good gifts and deepen the king's love to his son. So it turns out that negativity or negative impulses or negative desires is actually a test, just like in the story of the king and his son. And it can actually deepen our relationship with God, and it can actually deepen our connection with God. It's just like whenever you're building strength. If you want to strengthen your muscles, if you want to work out your muscles, there has to be some resistance. It has to be difficult. If it's easy, then you're not going to build muscle that way. To build muscle, there has to be resistance. It has to be heavy. It has to be difficult. You have to break a sweat, whatever it might be. And the same thing is with everything in life. In order to strengthen yourself on the positive side, negativity could help push you forward in a positive direction.
This story really reminds me of the book of Job.
Okay.
It's a very similar result.
Right. So just like in the example of the Zohar, where you have the king and his son and the woman, the same thing is with the Yetzer HaTov, the Yetzer Hara. The evil inclination is hired by God, and the evil inclination is there to try to make you stumble. But what does the evil inclination want? What did that woman want? Did the woman want him to fail, or did the woman want him to be successful? To be successful, because that was the purpose of the whole test. The purpose is not that he should fail. The purpose is that he should be able to withstand the test. And the same thing is with the Yetzer Hara. The evil inclination, its desire is that you should overcome the test, and that should make you stronger. Now, at the same time, the evil inclination has to play its part to the best of its ability, right? If it's going to cheat to help you, then it's not fulfilling its mission. The whole point is that there should be strong resistance, and then if you're able to overcome that strong resistance, that's going to push you forward very far. So in other words, what does God want from us? God wants from us that we should subdue the negativity. So there should be this choice of positive and negative, and we should push down the negativity, and by doing that, advance on the positive side. So the Kabbalah gives us a new appreciation for the evil inclination. Because up until this point, the evil inclination sounds bad. The evil inclination sounds evil. But actually, now we have a new appreciation for this evil inclination, because it's only through the evil inclination that we could achieve, something greater and have freedom of choice, right? If there was no evil inclination, there would be no freedom of choice. You would automatically choose good. So now there's freedom of choice. Now that you have freedom of choice, you can choose the positive. And then also there's the resistance when there's pushback from the negative side. And then if you overcome it, then you are able to reach greater achievements on the positive side. Okay, so the Zohar and the Kabbalah taught us a lot in terms of what's going on inside of us. We have this evil inclination, and then there's the truth of the evil inclination, that it's really there to help us. But it would be helpful to have more information, because it's not things are not so black and white. Things are much more complex than this. So it would be very good to understand more of what's happening internally and what's happening, what is happening inside of us. Self-understanding is not so easy. It's a rare quality to really understand the core of who we are. So how do we get there? How can we reach deeper into ourselves and find out more of what's happening inside of us internally? And for this, I would like to introduce you to Chassidut. Chassidut is basically Kabbalah explained. Okay, we had a wonderful story that we read from the Zohar before, and very easy to understand the story. So it gives us a new appreciation of things. It's very simple story, very simple concept, very easy to understand. Unfortunately, though, 99% of the Kabbalah is not as easy reading as the story. So if you open any book of the Kabbalah, no matter what language, if it's in French or English, whatever it might be, it will be basically close to impossible to understand what the Kabbalah is trying to say. In fact, there are 2 paragraphs of the Kabbalah that we read every Friday night in the prayers, and right here on the shelf we have it printed. It's translated into English. You try reading that English side of the book, and I guarantee you that as good as the translation is, you're just not going to understand what the Kabbalah is talking about, because that's what the Kabbalah is. Because the Kabbalah is the deepest parts of the Torah, because it's the secrets, it's the soul of the Torah. It's not possible for us to understand it just by reading the text of the Kabbalah. That's just the nature of the Kabbalah, and that's the way the Kabbalah is written. So but the Kabbalah is so important. We talked about how it's the soul of the Torah, and it's really the core of what the Torah, and the Zohar told us earlier also that anybody who only sees the external layers of the Torah, they're really missing the core. So how could we overcome this language barrier, if we will? How do we understand the Kabbalah? So this is where Chassidut comes into play. Chassidut is the explanation of the Kabbalah. It doesn't explain everything, but it explains many things from the Kabbalah. And today we're going to explore something from, we're going to explore Chassidut to understand more about ourselves, and then to understand more about the evil inclination, more about happiness, more about the struggles, to answer some of these questions, to get to the bottom, to reach the core of some of these issues, and then to also appreciate the contribution of the Kabbalah, and then also to appreciate the contribution of Chassidut, because we'll see what Chassidut brings to light, how we can understand more of the Kabbalah. Just a very quick history of Chassidut. Chassidut, I guess best translated would be Hasidic philosophy. basically, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, who lived about 250 years ago, he used the mystical teachings of the Kabbalah to create a program for every single person to follow. So you look into the Kabbalah, you can't, like I said before, 99% of it is not understandable. So what Rabbi Shneur Zalman achieved was to, based on the Kabbalah, to use the teachings of the Kabbalah to create a practical program for people to be able to discover more about themselves and improve themselves, and really a program for life based on the Kabbalah. This system of learning is called Chabad. Okay, you might recognize the word Chabad, but Chabad is actually an acronym for three words: Chachma, Bina, and Da'at. Chachma means wisdom, Bina is intellect, and Da'at is understanding. Now, they basically, if you just translate it into English, then they all sound the same. What's the difference between intellect, wisdom, and understanding? They're all the same. But actually, there are three fundamentally different steps in the process of intellect and in the process of understanding. And I'll just share it with you very quickly. The first level of understanding is when you have like a flash of light in your head. All of a sudden, an idea goes off in your head. Okay, so sometimes you might have experienced this recently. Most people experience this from time to time. You have an idea just hits you. Something just pops into your head. But that's just an idea. It's just like a seed. But you immediately need to develop this idea with its details to be able to grasp it, to be able to hold on to it, and to be able to retain it. That's the second level. The second level, Bina, is the development of the original idea that you had in your head. And Da'at, which we translated as understanding, is really application. So finally, you have a full understanding of your idea. Now it's about applying it to a situation. It's about figuring out how it could be put into practice. So it's still considered to be intellectual because it's still in your head. It's still in your head, but it's the application. You're understanding in your mind how this idea could be applied to a real life problem. Okay, so this is what Chabad stands for. Chabad stands for Chachma, Bina, Dat, wisdom and intellect, understanding, but it's actually the three levels it's the intellectual process of the idea popping into your head, the development of the idea, and then the application. So that's what Chabad stands for, and specifically, this is in the context of the Kabbalah. So the Kabbalah is supposed to be something that we can learn in such a way, not that we're flying high and we don't understand what we're saying and we don't understand what we're doing, but it should actually be real learning. So we fully comprehend the idea, the concept, and then we could figure out how to apply it to our lives. So that's why the system of learning that Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi instituted, he called it Chabad, because that's what it was all about. It was about first of all understanding it in a very real way, and a way that we could grasp it. And the Kabbalah is not written that way. It's not written that way at all. But with the teachings of Chabad Chassidut is about learning the Kabbalah in a real way, just like you would any intellectual study. But more than that, also the application to understand how this could benefit us, how it could improve our lives, improve our character, and all of that. So this is the history of Hasidic philosophy. Now let's put this to the test and see what does Hasidic philosophy add, and what does it contribute to what we already know. So just to recap very quickly, what do we already know? We know that we have two inclinations. We have the good inclination and we have the evil inclination. We know that we could improve ourselves, and we know that that we could serve God with the evil inclination. So far, we know that the evil inclination is there to benefit us. That we learned from the Zohar. It's there to benefit us, and it's there to help us reach greater heights on a positive level. Now, we would like to dig deeper and understand more, and let's see what Chabad, Chassidut, Hasidic philosophy could add to all of this. And then through this, we're going to start getting answers to some of our questions about happiness, about our struggles, and the inclinations that we have inside of ourselves. So let's look at page number 2. You could see Tanya. So Tanya is the name of the book. It's the name of the book that Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi wrote. And it's a book that has 53 chapters. And I think we should have, at some point, we should have a series just on the Tanya. It's a fascinating book, and it really is a book that literally helps you with real life issues and real life struggles. So one day we'll definitely study that book properly, chapter by chapter. But in the meantime, let's look at the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2 in the Tanya. Every one of us, whether righteous or wicked, has two souls. One originates in non-holiness, and this is the soul that gives life to the body, and is the source of all negative character traits as well as all naturally good traits. For this soul, coming from that which is not holy, is derived from a level of non-holy spirituality that also contains good. Second soul of each one of us is a part of godliness above. Okay, so this is the end of chapter 1 and beginning of chapter 2 of the Tanya. And if you read it quickly, you might not notice anything fundamental that we're learning here, but in fact, there is a tremendous breakthrough right here that we could see in the Tanya. And that is that we don't just have an evil inclination. We don't just have a Yetzer Hara. We don't just have a voice which is pushing us in a certain direction. If you look in the beginning, it says, each one of us has two souls. So now it's not calling it an inclination, it's calling it a soul. So in reality, what it's saying is that this voice is part of a much bigger picture. It's part of the animal soul, right? Also known as the natural soul. So you could see it here. It talks about the first soul, which is the source of all negative character traits and all naturally good traits. And then the second soul is a part of God. So these are the two souls that we each have inside of ourselves. Now, the first soul is not evil. It's not bad. That's why, what does it call it here? It's the soul that gives life to the body. Okay, it doesn't give the name of the soul here, but actually further in the chapter, it gives a name to the soul. It has two names actually. It's called the animal soul, the animalistic soul, and it's also called the natural soul, okay? And they both mean the same thing. That's why they have two different names. They really mean the same thing. Animals are just following their nature. They're not bad. Animals are selfish, but they're not bad because that's their nature. So they're just doing what's normal for them. So that's why these two names, the animal soul and the natural soul, it's actually the same thing. So we're being very careful not to call it the evil soul or the bad soul, because it's exactly not that. It's exactly not evil. It's natural. Naturally, we're selfish. Naturally, we have animalistic desires. Naturally, we put ourselves first. So that's why it says that all negative character traits come from the soul, because negative character traits are natural. Also, all naturally good character traits come from the soul, because this is the natural soul. So let's say somebody is kind by nature. That's their nature. So where does that come from? That comes from the first soul, right? So it's not only negative, it's natural.
It's like animals also have natural, could have a kind character.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the first soul. The second soul is actually a part of God within us. That's the second soul. So the first soul is the animalistic soul. It's the natural soul. It's the soul that gives us life. That's the soul that literally makes our heart pump and makes us alive. Without our body, without a soul, is not alive. This is the soul that makes us alive. The second soul is a part of God that we have within ourselves. What is that soul all about? The godly soul, it's pretty self-explanatory. It wants to do God's will. The godly soul wants to do God's will. It wants to connect to God. It desires good. It desires. It is selfless, because that's a godly thing, to be selfless. So that's the godly soul. This godly soul yearns for a close relationship with God, a close relationship with other souls, to fulfill its mission that God has given it. So that's the second soul. So again, the natural soul is drawn to physicality, because that's our nature. The godly soul is drawn to spirituality and to godliness. So basically, we have two beings inside of ourselves. We have two characters, if you will, inside of ourselves. We have two full characters inside of ourselves. So until now, what we learned was we were talking about inclinations. We're talking about voices. You have a good voice, a bad voice. But now we're understanding that we actually have two full characters inside of ourselves. There's one part of us, and it's not just the voice, but it's a full character that wants to be selfless, that wants to be kind, that wants to be godly, that wants to connect to other souls. And then we have the first soul, which is only thinking about itself. It's selfish. It's selfish. It is looking for instant gratification. So it's a full character. It's not just the voice, but it's a full character of intellect and emotion, right? So it's not just a voice saying to you, oh, why don't you rob a bank? But it's actually it'll come with the intellect and the emotion behind it. So the emotion will be all of the wonderful things that you could do with the money, all of the wonderful feelings that you're going to be able to feel when you get the things that you want with that money. The intellect is the idea how you're gonna carry out the plan, and so on. So it's not just a voice, but it's actually a full character made up of a full intellect and a full emotional character. And the same thing is on the other side. The godly soul, it has the intellectual aspect, it has the emotional aspect, it has all of that. It has all of that. So what is Yetzer Hara? What is the evil inclination? Why are we calling? Why? How did we get this term evil inclination? If it's a natural soul, animalistic soul, how did we get the Yetzer Hara? Yetzer Hara means the evil inclination. How did we get to that? So actually, the word in Hebrew Yetzer also means formed. Anybody recognize that?
Mhm.
Like Yitzira or Yetzer, like to form something. And basically what this evil inclination is, the evil inclination is basically the animalistic soul channeled into something negative, right? So the animalistic soul just has natural desires and it has natural feelings and it just wants to do the things that make it feel good. But when that character follows through with a certain desire, with a certain plan, and it happens to be something bad or a sin or whatever it might be, so so the soul at that point was channeled into negativity, and that's when it becomes the evil inclination. So in the source, it's not evil, but if it develops into something bad, so that's why we call it, the word in Hebrew is yetzer. It's formed. So you have the energy of the soul. When that energy is channeled into something negative, then you have then it's evil. Then it's an evil inclination. So the inclination is the outcome. It's in the end. If it becomes developed, if the idea is developed from an idea into a plan, into emotion, and then finally into action, then that's when it's the evil inclination. That's when it's the evil inclination. So that's why that's why in the beginning it's called natural. It's called animalistic. Only later could it be called evil, because it's not evil at the source. So it's basically manifesting itself into the evil inclination. You have the character, you have this soul's character manifesting itself into the evil inclination. So like any raw material becoming something, so the raw material could become anything, and then it's formed into something specific, and that's when it has this new identity. You have this with any materials. The material is raw, and then you develop this material into something, and that's when it has this form. And in this case, it becomes the evil inclination. So we have two voices. The two voices come from two completely different souls, two completely different characters. Now, what determines our behavior? Okay, so you have two souls, two sets of intellect, two sets of emotion. Now, what will determine our behavior? Why is one guy a bank robber and the other guy a philanthropist, right? So if everyone has, it's not that some people have the good character and some have it's not that some people have the good soul, the godly soul, and other people have the animalistic soul. Everyone has both. So how does this become? How exactly? How does this translate into people that are so different? So you have some bad people, some good people, all of that. How does that happen? So let's look at the next text, which is also from the Tanya, this time chapter 9. And again, all of this we're seeing. This is in addition to what we know from the verses of the Torah, from the Talmud, even from the Kabbalah. This is something that the Chassidut is helping us understand the Kabbalah in a deeper way, and at the same time to understand who we ourselves are in a deeper way. So Tanya chapter number 9. The body is compared to a small city. Just as two kings wage war over a city that each wishes to capture and rule, so the two souls, the godly soul and the life-giving animal soul, wage war against each other over the body and all its limbs. Godly soul's will and desire is that it alone rule and direct the person, and the animal soul desires the very opposite. Okay, so you have the struggle, just like you have a city, that's a battle over a city. Two kings want control over the same city. Our bodies are small cities, and the city is being fought over by these two characters within ourselves. There are three things that we do in life. Everything is included in these three things, okay? We think, we speak, and we act. We think, we speak, and we act. Everything is included in those three things. Now, each of these two souls want to be in control of those thoughts, of that speech, and of that action. Every time there's an opportunity to think something, to speak something, to act something, there's a struggle between these two souls. Each soul, each character within us, want to have full control over that particular action, or over that particular sentence, or that particular thought. The godly soul is interested in a beautiful relationship with God, with beautiful relationships with others. The animal soul is interested in its own needs and its desires, and usually instant gratification. It wants it at that very moment. We spend most of our childhood trying to get past that selfish nature. We hope that by the time we're adults, we're able to be a little bit more selfless. How do we do that? We do that by our mind controlling our heart. So even though you might want something very badly and a very strong desire, but your mind has control over over your heart, or it could have control over your heart. Now, your mind controlling the heart is just like exercising any muscle. So in the beginning, it's really difficult. I just started running now. Just a few days ago, I started running with Rafi. Every day we run for 15 minutes on the water. So the first day, the second day I had to cancel because my whole body was aching. I couldn't do it. But then the second time we did it, which was the third day, it was already only half as bad. Okay, so it's like a muscle. You work out the muscle. It gets easier. You're stronger. You're working out the muscle. The same thing is with your mind controlling your heart. The first time you have to control something, control a temptation, it's the most difficult thing in the world. It's impossible. But it's like any muscle. You try it a few times, it becomes easier. But at the end of the day, it's never going to be fun. Denying yourself of something is never going to be fun. So how could we deal with this? Right? Because we're talking about you have the struggle between the two characters, and even if you understand that that it's better to be selfless, even though you understand that, but it's not so easy to put in practice, to actually control your heart and to actually put yourself on the side and put someone else first, do something for someone else. It's not easy. So how can we deal with this? What is a way that could help us put this into practice? So with regards to happiness, researchers have analyzed 3 approaches that people could take in life: task, career, and calling. Okay, task, career, and calling. What are these 3 things? I'll give a quick explanation, then an example for each one. Task is something that just has to get done. It's a pretty self-explanatory. You have to do it. Career is something that's important to you to advance your life's goals. right? Your career is not just something you want to get done. Career is something you're pursuing. It's you're trying to advance in some way. And then you have the calling. Calling is something that we feel is part of the purpose of our life and the purpose of our existence. So researchers have found that these are three approaches that everyone could take in life in whatever they're doing. And I'll give a quick example. You have Mr. A is an attorney. He's a divorce attorney. And why is he a divorce attorney? He does it to make money, to support his family, and to be comfortable. He often wishes that time at work would, move more quickly, because he's not really interested in the work. He's interested in the money and what he could do with the money. He very much looks forward to vacations and time off, because it's not about the work. It's about getting the money. So this is this person's approach in life is a task. I have to get this done in order to get something else. In order to get my paycheck, in order to build wealth, I need to fulfill this task. This task is every day of his life until he retires, but that's the task. Then you have Mr. B. Mr. B is also a divorce attorney, but his goal in life is to become a judge. So sometimes his work feels like a total waste of time, especially when he has to deal with people's emotions, emotional problems, going through a divorce. It could be difficult. So, so many parts of his job could feel like a total waste of time. But in order to become a judge, he knows that he has to keep his good reputation as a lawyer. So this is like career. So he's working toward this approach in life is the career approach, where he's not doing it as a task, because it's not. Well, in a way, it's similar to a task, because both the task and the career, it's not an end for itself. They're a means to an end, right? But the guy who's living with the career approach, he is probably enjoying his job much more, because it's his life. Exactly. He's advancing every single day. But then you have the third approach, which is fundamentally different. The third approach is calling. And this is Mr. C. Mr. C is also a divorce attorney. But he sees his job not as a means to an end, but he sees his job as the most important part of his life. He knows that his wise counsel that he gives to his clients who are getting divorced, he knows that his counsel has a tremendous impact on the people involved, and especially the children. So he knows that his advice could spare children the pain, the anxiety, and the difficulties of a messy divorce. So what he does while he's doing whatever negotiation or paperwork is necessary to do, at the same time he is counseling the parents and helping them stay focused on what's truly important, so that way these children who are involved are not going to be damaged. So Mr. C sees this as his life's mission, and this guy doesn't want to retire, so he's not trying to make enough money to pay his bills and to be comfortable. He's not trying to be a judge. He's every single day he is practicing what he believes is his life's mission. His life's mission to help these children. So, in other words, this is his calling. This is his life's mission. This is in his mind. This is the purpose of his existence. This is the purpose of his life. Now let's do a quick exercise, okay? On your sheets, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines. These are 7 parts of your life, and if you could just quickly circle each of these parts of your life. Is it more of a task, more of a career, or more of a calling? Task, career, or calling? So try to quickly do these 7 lines. I'll give you a moment for that. Is there cold water?
Sure.
Thank you so much. Okay, is that enough time?
They have the paper too.
It's so hopefully everyone downloaded it. It's at jewishiceland.com/class. Maybe I should have mentioned that in the middle for the people who joined in the middle. That's where the text sheet is. It's on the text sheet, jewishiceland.com/class. We'll give another minute in case somebody didn't see it yet.
Want to read it out loud, maybe in case somebody can't download it?
Sure. I'll read it out loud in case somebody's having trouble downloading it. So you have attending university. Is that task, career, or calling? Your occupation. Caring for and spending time with family. Volunteer work and giving charity. Struggling with my character flaws and personal shortcomings. Community involvement and Jewish observances. Okay, so how many of you chose on the volunteer work and giving charity? Who of you chose calling? Everyone. Everyone on Zoom also?
You don't have to be embarrassed.
Volunteer work and giving charity is a calling. Okay, that's good. Now, why is it that you're okay with giving charity even though you're denying yourself certain pleasures that it can bring you, right? So you're giving away, whenever you're giving charity, you're giving away something that you could have used for your own personal, desires. Why are you okay with that? You're okay with it because even your animal soul, even your natural soul understands that it's part of your purpose. And that makes it easier to do, and it actually makes it more enjoyable. So when you know that something is your calling, when you know something is part of your purpose, it's much easier to do. So it's much easier to do charity when you see it as your calling than when you see it as a task. If you see charity as a task, that it's not likely that you're going to give charity, because you're basically denying yourself something good that you could have had. But if you see it more as a calling and a purpose, then it's much easier to do, and you'll get much less pushback, if you will, from your animal soul. It'll be much easier for that king to win over your city. It'll be much easier for your godly soul to win over the city, because even the animal soul could understand that there's something special and unique about a purpose of life and the purpose of existence. What did you choose for struggling with my character flaws and personal shortcomings? Task?
Yeah.
Task?
Let's say calling.
Calling? Anyone else?
Career.
Anyone? Career? What did you say?
Career, yeah.
Career, okay.
Right.
Anyone else? Okay, I think I would choose career. So I think most people chose either task or career, and it kind of makes sense because the point
Career is on a higher level of right?
Is that what that means? Yeah.
What just happened?
What happened? What happened?
Everybody else can hear me, right? Even though they don't see me.
Yeah.
You can, okay. Because I think I'm having some similar problems with my camera. It's just, it went off and the computer is asking me to restart, but I don't want to leave the meeting to do all of that. So if you can hear me, that's good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hear you.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, but
Okay. Very good, very good. Just wanted to let someone know I'm still here even though the camera is off. I don't know what happened with the camera. The computer told me I must have updated something, and for the camera to work I need to restart the computer.
Papa is gone.
Yeah, everybody's still on.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
No problem. I want to let everybody know, Aaron, I'm still here. My camera went off for some reason. I cannot get it back on, but I'm still here and listening to everything.
Okay, awesome. Abby's phone just kind of collapsed, but here we are back on this. Here. Excuse
We
me.
should do it over here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so sorry about that. As you can see, I will show you. I'm not going to show you, actually. I'm not going to waste your time. But my phone is actually plugged in. It was plugged into the wall the whole time, and somehow it just died. I don't know. So I'm using Mushki's phone now. And I'm so sorry about that. We were just at the best part. Okay. So,
Do a quick recap.
yeah, we'll do a quick recap.
Is it good?
Okay, everyone's still here for some reason. How do you make the screen go sideways?
Oh yeah, sorry. Scroll down.
I'll do it. Here.
iPhones.
There. Okay, everybody here?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. My bad.
yes.
I will file a complaint with Samsung. Okay, so we were talking about struggling with your character flaws and personal shortcomings. Most people agree that this is either a task or a career, right? Because at the end, you want to have a good character, right? So the point of life, most people will say that the point of life is that you should become a better person. So improving yourself and improving your character until you get there, it's just a task or just a career. Probably career might be the most accurate, because you're trying to reach a certain level. You're trying to reach a certain type. You're trying to develop your character into a certain type. So that's what most of the world will probably tell you, that struggling with character flaws and personal shortcomings is a task or a career. However, the Tanya gives a fundamentally different approach. And this new approach has the potential to change the way you view your personal struggles and your internal conflicts. Let us look at the last text on the page on our text sheet. And this is going to be something extremely powerful that I feel is very powerful. And this is from the 27th chapter of Tanya. A person should not feel dejected, nor should his heart be terribly distressed, even if he is engaged in inner conflicts all his life. For perhaps it is for this that he was created. And this is his role, to constantly conquer negativity. So what is this saying? This is saying essentially that God created an imperfect world with the goal that we help God perfect it. So we kind of become partners with God when we take part in perfecting the world. So what happens when you're having an inner struggle? In your little city that two kings are fighting over, your two characters are fighting over it. What's happening when you have this conflict? What's happening when you're having this struggle? What's happening is you have the opportunity to accomplish the highest potential of a human being. The highest potential of a human being is to be a partner with God. So what is this that you have the opportunity to do? You have the opportunity of the godly soul taking control over the small city, the godly soul taking control over your body. And what that means is that you're subduing negativity for that moment. So there's a certain choice. There's a certain opportunity that you have, and you can go either right or left. You can go this way or that way, positive or negative. And by allowing the godly soul to take control over your small city, over your body, you are subduing the negativity for that moment, and you are partnering with God to perfect the world. You're becoming God's partner because God created the world, and you're helping God make it more perfect. And you make it more perfect by doing more positive and pushing away and subduing the negative. Okay, so here is the fundamental idea that the Tanya is teaching us right here in this chapter. It's teaching us that while the world sees the perfect person as a hero, the Tanya sees the imperfect person who has a struggle and chooses good and subdues the negative. The Tanya sees this imperfect person with the struggle as the hero. So the Tanya agrees with Finur because developing your character is not a means to an end. It's not about becoming a perfect person when you're 75 years old. It's about right now, this moment. It's about conquering the negativity at this moment. So it's not a means to an end, but this is actually a calling, because this is actually the greatest achievement that a human being could achieve to help God, so to speak, make this world a more perfect place and a better place. So the Tanya doesn't see a perfect person as a hero. The Tanya sees the struggling person who has negative temptations because his animal soul and his natural soul is fully alive and fully active. So he has the struggle. The Tanya sees this person with the struggle who chooses good as the hero. The Tanya sees the imperfect person with the struggle as the hero. When we realize that inner conflicts inside of ourselves and our conflicts in life are not failures, but they're actually tools to accomplish our mission, then this will give us tremendous joy, as opposed to feeling dejected and feelings of failure, right? So sometimes you could think to yourself, look at my relationship, it's a mess. Look at my character, it's a mess. As much as I try doing good, I'm still the same person who I am. I'm still the same selfish person. Selfish person. I'm still the same. I'm still the same. I still have the same ego. I still, sometimes secretly wish that my competitors will fail and they'll be hurt emotionally, physically, whatever it might be. Sometimes people could feel like, what kind of terrible person am I? And look at what a failure I am, because look how evil I am at my core. Look what kind of bad person I am at my core. I wish that something bad should happen to someone else. I wish to hurt someone else, or that someone else should be hurt, even if I'm not the one. This could really make you feel terrible, and could really make you feel could really make you give up in terms of self-improvement and self-worth. And what the Tanya teaches us is something unbelievable. The Tanya teaches us, first of all, who are you? You're not one person, you're not one character, and you're either good or bad. And if you sometimes have a bad feeling, that means you're a bad person. On the contrary, you have two characters, and they're full characters, intellect, emotion, everything. And that's why sometimes you feel this way, sometimes you feel that way. If sometimes you have a negative feeling, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means that you allowed your animal soul to take charge for that moment. And it means that the next time you should try harder, that your godly soul should be in the driver's seat. But so that's the first thing we know from the Tanya. The first thing we know is that it's not black and white. You're not either a good person or a bad person. You have two sides to you. You have two sides to you, and they're really two characters. That's the first thing. The second thing is that you should never feel like a failure for feelings that you have, and you should never give up on self-improvement, because it's really not about being a perfect person. According to the Tanya, and according to the way the Tanya understands the Kabbalah, the ultimate, the hero is not the perfect person. The hero is the person who has the conflicts, who has the struggle. And it's about within the struggle, figuring out how to overcome the negative and let the positive shine.
Wow, it's like using them both at the same time.
Exactly.
In essence, I was just thinking about, I was like just laughing here to myself when you were describing it. It sounds bipolar. First we have the positive, then we have the negative, we have the spiritual, we have the animalistic soul, then we have the godly soul. But it really isn't about having one at a time, which would be the definition of bipolar. It would be combining them and creating our fullest essence. Am I right?
Yeah. And the reason why it's not a career, is because it's not a means to an end. In the end, we're still going to have the same. When you're 75 years old, you're going to have the same struggle. because you still have the same two characters. You can have the same struggle. So it's not a career. It's not a means to an end. I'm trying to reach a certain point when I'm no longer going to have negative feelings. No, you're always going to have that struggle. You're always going to have that struggle. And that's the calling. The calling is that the reason why it's a calling is because I'm supposed to take this moment, that this opportunity that I have right now, I'm supposed to take this opportunity to conquer the negative and let the positive shine. So that's why it's a calling, because it's not for the future. It's not a means to an end, but it's actually right now, right this moment. For this moment, I have the choice either to follow a negative desire or to help God make this world kinder, better, and more perfect. So no matter how small that the situation might seem, and no matter how small the decision might seem, but if it's a struggle for you, and if it's an inner conflict for you, then this is your calling. This is your calling. This is what your life is about. It's about overcoming the challenge. And it's not that when you overcome the challenge, you'll be a different person. You're still going to be the same person. So the next minute you'll have another challenge, and the next day you'll have another conflict, the same conflict or a different conflict, and then you'll have an opportunity to overcome that again, to conquer the negativity again at this new moment, at this new opportunity, and let the positive shine. So if we live our lives as a career and realize that it's not about achieving perfection, if you're trying to achieve perfection, then you're going to get frustrated. You see, I'm not accomplishing anything. It's not working out. I'm not achieving. That's if you live your life as a task or a calling. But if you live your life as a task or a career, but if you live your life as a calling, then every single part of your life could be filled with joy, and it could be a source of joy and fulfillment, because you realize that at every single moment you have the opportunity to really do what you are here for, to really accomplish what you are here for, this very moment. And what happens in the next moment is another opportunity to do the same. But it doesn't mean that you're going to change. You're still going to have you're going to still have the same two characters inside of you. And there will always be a struggle. There will always be a conflict. And the hero is not the perfect person. The hero is the imperfect person who is able to subdue the negativity and allow the positivity to shine.
Wow.
So just to summarize very quickly, we in the beginning of we started the class asking the question, why are people unhappy, and what could make people more happy? I don't have the exact answer to that, but I think that the Kabbalah, the Torah, first the simple layer, and then the Talmud, and then the Kabbalah, and then finally Hasidic philosophy, it sheds a lot of light onto this, and it could really help us achieve joy and fulfillment in every single moment of our lives. So what might seem as a failure, and what might seem as a lost cause, actually turns into a source for joy when you realize that you're actually accomplishing something tremendous. So that's how we started the class, and basically we continued with, so that was the beginning and the end, side by side. But just to give a quick recap of the whole class, at least the main points, we talked about, first we discovered from the Torah and from the Talmud that we have two voices, two inclinations. But we dug a little deeper. We found out from the Kabbalah that it's actually two souls, and each one is from the Kabbalah we learned that the bad voice is actually not all that bad, because it's there to help you. It's there to help you reach reach greater heights, and it's like the woman in the example of the Zohar. But that wasn't enough. We were looking for more explanation. We were looking for deeper understanding. And for that, we got into Chassidut, into Hasidic philosophy, Chabad Hasidic philosophy, which explored deeper into the Kabbalah and told us that these two inclinations are in fact two complete souls that have two complete characters, intellect, emotion. And I think the most important contribution of the Tanya on this topic was who is the hero? Who is the hero? The hero of the world is the perfect person, but the hero of the Tanya is the imperfect person, the one who has the struggle, the one who has the conflict. And at every single opportunity, we have the possibility to turn it into a moment of calling, to turn it into a moment of reaching our greatest heights that a human being could reach, that we should help God make this world a better place, a kinder place, and a more positive place. So I think that's the message. That's the message of this class. The message is that now you know who you are. You know why you have conflicts. You know why you have struggles. You know why one day you feel like being selfless, and the next day you feel like being selfish. Now you know why. And now you also know that you shouldn't give up. You know that you're not a bad person just because you have a bad feeling. And now you know that what's really going on inside of you. What's really going on inside of you. And now you know that your calling could be at every single moment. So I just want to end off by saying, besides for everything we learned about struggles, conflicts, and joy, and happiness, and purpose of life, besides for all of this, you see the depth of the Torah and the depth of our heritage. And I encourage you that whenever it comes to learning, always, especially if you're reading from the Torah, to know that there's always something deeper. And when you're reading the commentary, there's something deeper than that. And there's so much beauty and so much depth to our heritage, to the Torah. And this is just one example of a million. This is just an example. We took one topic, one verse, one piece of Talmud, one piece of Kabbalah, one piece of Chassidut, and we see the whole chain reaction. How first of all, what it teaches us. How it could really change our lives if we really implement this in our lives. This could really be a life-changing lesson. But also realize that this is one tiny example of the Torah. Look how beautiful the Torah is. Look how rich it is, and this inspires me to study more. Even the difference between being a rabbi and another profession is that when you do another profession, you don't have to constantly study more and more. But when you're a rabbi, the study never ends, and it's actually not only for a rabbi. All Jewish people have the mitzvah to study Torah, and it's different to every other study. The mitzvah never finishes because we could always study more. This is a small example, but for me, this is a very powerful example because I think the most powerful thing here, we see what the Tanya is saying, that you could be a hero every single day. You could be a hero every single moment. You don't need to be perfect to be a hero. Actually, if you're perfect, then you're not a hero. You could only be a hero if you have the conflict and if you let the positivity shine.
Embrace the conflict. Okay.
I think we went over time again. What time is it?
Oh, it's 10.
Started a few minutes late, but okay. It gets too good. So
Nice. Thank you very much.
good to see you, Olga.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. I hope you were able to really capture the ideas, even though
Yeah.
you missed the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I will check the text which you have put over there. It was good so far. I mean,
Okay.
mm,
Glad to hear that.
because while I was studying Kabbalah to understand, it matches.
Okay, amazing. Glad to hear that. Massimo, any wise words?
Well, thank you, first of all. And it's, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I always, I remember since I was a child, I always somehow admire people with difficulties and imperfections still,
Wow.
you know, carrying on. Somehow I always support the team that is most disadvantaged, you know. So being raised in Italy and football is very much on television. I still remember supporting the team that was the one, you know, less advantaged, because I think it's always beautiful when people difficulty. Well, I think they have always an ability to teach the other that can be done. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to. I mean, perfect. First of all, I have difficulties with this word. I don't think perfection exists, but I'm just saying it is also the endurance and the ability to put yourself in a form of learning. I mean, that's also the mitzvah of learning, and Jewish people, as you say, have the mitzvah to learn and to learn from the Torah. But I also feel I have the mitzvah to learn because I am a teacher, and I can never really, and in a way, forgive me for the comparison, but it is a way, a little bit of being a rabbi, you know, because you want to learn, you want to talk about something that you are passionate, and you want to eventually help someone else who decides to study or to make, I mean, to make something out of his life, and therefore you go to school, and therefore education. I mean, it's a form of, it's a calling, but it's also, I also think it's important right now, you know, for this moment. And so I don't know, for me it makes sense. It makes sense what you say, and I find it also very, yeah, I find it beautiful. So thank you.
Okay.
It's very encouraging, especially when the winter
That's
is
great.
coming.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any other comments, questions, ideas? But I'll just, you mentioned something, the comparison to rabbi. I think you're 100% correct, because actually the word rabbi means a lot of things, and it's about a leadership, being a leader of a community and being there for the people and everything. But actually that's not, the word rabbi doesn't mean any of that. The word rabbi comes from the word Rebbe, the Hebrew word Rebbe, which means teacher.
Yeah.
So actually the first and most important function of a rabbi is to be a teacher. That's what a rabbi is. That's the most important.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why we called Moses. We called Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe our teacher, because that's considered to be the most important role. The first and foremost role of a rabbi is a teacher of Torah and a teacher of life. So 100% correct there with the comparison.
Avi, sorry, I have a memory. I don't know where this comes from, but maybe you can connect it to some of the writings in any book that you have written. The story of there was a baby being born, and the parents decided not to speak any language to this baby because they wanted the baby somehow to develop their own language, but the baby actually died. This was a metaphor to say that also the act of speaking, the act of teaching, the act of, that is what makes us also human. I mean, I think we wouldn't be, we wouldn't be completely human without communication. Or we wouldn't be completely human if someone wouldn't teach us how to communicate. And I think, you know, this is fundamental. It's also about how we relate with each other and how we can learn from each other. And so without the teaching, I think we wouldn't just be probably even alive, you know, and because animals, I mean, now it is proven that of course also the animals need their parents, they need parenting to develop certain skills, but they are in a way more resilient. They have these skills much more in their DNA, but we don't. I mean, so we really need the continuity of the teaching to make us.
Yeah, they're born with their instincts.
Yes.
But humans has to learn.
Yes.
And the words or the communication is the illumination of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you what, I'm not familiar with that story, even though it sounds very profound. But I'll tell you something else that is very fascinating that fits right exactly with what you're saying, and that is that there are four
elements.
There are four types of life on this earth. Four types of life.
Beings, because it's not dynamic, isn't life. Four types of beings. Right?
Four types of existence.
Right.
Four types of existence on this planet. In Hebrew, it's domem, tzomeach, chai, medaber. In English, it's inanimate objects. Then that's the lowest level. Then you have vegetation.
No, domem, yeah.
And then you have the animal kingdom. And then you have humankind. Okay, so again, inanimate, vegetation, animal kingdom, and then people. But you know what's the word for humankind in Hebrew? It's midaber. That actually means, the translation is the speaker, the one who speaks. So it doesn't call us the intellectuals. It doesn't call us the smart one. You know, it doesn't call us any. It calls us midaber, the one who knows how to speak. Mm-hmm. So when referring to humans as the speaker is very unusual. But I think this is kind of what you're saying, that teaching is really at the core of communication. It's really communication. But speaking is, it's the same. Communication is really at the core of
What's
of
interesting
it all.
is that Hasidus goes into this and speaks about how, for the mountains to serve its purpose, all they have to be is inanimate. All they have to be is a mountain, right? For the trees to fulfill their purpose, they have to grow. They have to be beautiful. They have to be, all that. For animals, it's the term for it is chai, that they're alive. They have to be alive. They have to keep themselves safe, be alive. But for a human being to fulfill his mission, he has to use his speech. He has to use his medaber, his koach hadibur, his power of speech, in order to accomplish what he was created for in this world.
Beautiful.
Chaim.
Chaim,
That's really beautiful.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Have a good night.
Kabbalah class.
Thank you so much.
See you on Sunday, I hope.
Take care. Yes.
Yes.
Toda rabba.
The
Thank you.
best. Good night.
Bye.
Laila tov.
Laila tov. We'll see you.
Good night.
Est-ce qu'ils sont
The only way to end the recording is going to be on this phone.
Oh, I see.
Otherwise, it's going to record forever.
I give you the papers, no? No, because I had them.
I think
Okay, but who did I give
the
it to?
problem before may have been
Yeah.
that
teacher.
the
You want it?
the video was running down the battery faster
Right.
I was
than it
recharging.
was recharging.
That's interesting.
So
Is this still on?
I'm turning it off from here.
You did that?
I think
No,
that's
I
the
think
most
you're right.
logical explanation.
Take care, guys.
Because I think I started on a low number. I probably
That's
started at 10% or something.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much again.
Take care.
You too.
I'll leave here. No, and meeting for all? No, Bobby.
What's that?